All right, welcome back to Daily Standup. Today, I'm just going to provide an update as to where I got with the prototype backend data pipeline. I took a couple days off and I'm back today. So I've really been busy with honestly just work things in general, and then I've been going really in depth in a couple books. One of them is Dependency Injection, and another is Microservices Up and Running. So I'm trying to get through those quite a bit, and I'm about halfway, a little over halfway through the Dependency Injection one, and about halfway through the microservice book. I'll go into those a little more. So I'm going to report on my progress for the prototype of the backend data pipeline design one. So I think I showed this, or I should have posted a video with this walkthrough, I think. And I think I also showed this on my last stand-up, me just walking through the architecture of that. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one over to done, because I think we've done everything there. And then I'm going to drag in the prototype number 2, which is going to be a different, I think it's going to be a little different approach, or I may just kind of expand on my existing pattern. So I'm trying to flesh out a couple ideas and trying to make some architecture decisions now, and this is really the time for it. So my other decision is I think I might want to containerize the application and then containerize the actual database and then have those linked up with Docker Compose. I think that's what I might end up doing. We'll see. I think it would work really well if I did that. As far as I don't think I would containerize the UI portion apart from the back end. I think I would just keep those together because I don't anticipate me needing to scale those independently of each other. So I think I might make some content around prototyping what it would look like to run my main application in Docker and then run my database in a Docker container. So basically, I can show the code right now. I think, yeah, okay. So more or less, this is a Docker file. And basically what it specifies is just the settings pretty much for what you need to have Docker running. So Docker, you make an image and a container, and you specify, hold on, I want to move this over to this window. And let's drag this. Okay, I'm back. So basically you specify the image that you want to pull, in this case .NET from. So I'm going to pull down .NET 7. I think I might bump that to 8, but we'll see. You specify a working directory for, I think it's your image. Docker is definitely not my strong suit, and it's like I know just enough to get it running, but I like to go a lot more in depth with it, for sure, because I don't really know how to talk through at like a really, really good level the specifics beyond just like getting it up and running, and having two containers being able to talk to one another. So basically, it's going to run these commands: run .NET restore, and then .NET publish, which is basically if you were to go in your solution and publish it, basically it includes it's basically your package solution with dependencies and everything you need, pretty much. And then this is the entry point, so you specify the main DLL of your solution, and that's kind of it. So I don't know if this actually is finished. I'm going to actually see if I can. Also, this Visual Studio Mac terminal is crazy. It's like the weirdest little layout. I think I don't know if you have to do Docker machine. I'm used to using Podman, so it might be a little different. Whoops. Docker. Is it Docker start? We're going to see. Docker start requires at least one. Okay, option container. Okay, gotcha. So I might have to do Docker build and then give it my Docker file. Let's try that. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into this later because so if you've ever worked on Windows, an alternative to Docker is Podman. It's basically it's just another way to handle containerization and working with Docker. So once I get that up and running again, it's not at a point where it's going to be ready yet, but that's going to be my next video most likely. And then I have a Docker compose YAML file, which basically specifies your database, in my case, and the app itself. And then you specify what ports both of them are exposed on, and then it kind of it allows them to connect to each other. And obviously, this is just my local, so I don't really care about exposing passwords or anything. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm experimenting with. Honestly, that could be where am I at? That could be, I guess, a prototype backend. I might just include Docker for that because I think that's kind of like a backend decision that we have to do. So I don't know. I have a lot of. I'm still, again, this is still very, very, very early stages. So this is exactly what this is going to be for: figuring out the proper design pattern, figuring out what the correct backend design for us that we should implement. I would like to what I was going to say is I would like to look at a queue, but the way I'm doing my data pipeline would kind of do that as well. Yeah, I don't know. There's another prototype that I've been wanting to try as well, but I don't know if it warrants making another design ticket for that. So it's called Mailbox Processor, and it's actually an F#. And F# is like Microsoft's functional equivalent to C#. And it has a lot of features that C# is actually pulling. So a lot of features that actually are being brought into C# now have already existed in F#. And F# has this module called Mailbox Processor. It's basically like an asynchronous queue, I think based on the actor pattern, where it's like you can pass in data and then it'll asynchronously act on that data. But I think it guarantees thread safety and it guarantees to a level of concurrency without having to set much stuff up. I might look into that, but I don't know how into the weeds I want to get into, like the combining F# and C#. I don't know though. It's a legitimate possibility, or like it's a legitimate solution that you can use for problems. But again, I don't know if it's worth it, but we'll see. That's kind of where this is. So I think I'm going to leave this prototype rod, to be honest with you, because I think I wanted to, I'm going to actually delete the first part of this. What is I want to extend prototype 1 and build further back-end design. So I'm just going to list a few things that I want to experiment with. Queue. I'm just going to put Mailbox Processor on here because it's a serious consideration I have. And what was the other one? Also Docker containers, which I've already started. I'll just put. Then I need to make further design decisions. And my done when is, my done when's really the same thing as my first done when. Is I just need to be able to see some rough code and be able to step through it and kind of make a decision off of that. So that's pretty open-ended. Again, it's I estimated at 3 points, so I'm going to leave it at that, and that should take us to the end of the week for sure. It's admittedly it's a little harder to make content on the prototypes because it's a lot of thinking and a lot of experimenting, and it's a lot of just trying code, and a lot of it does, a lot of the code doesn't work. You have to see what works and things like that. So that's why the videos have kind of dialed back, because it's been hard for me to figure out how to make the videos of the prototype in a way where it's actually like content aside from me just talking about, what I've done. And that's where I think where the architecture meeting came into play, is because that's where I showed you what my data pipeline code or prototype looks like and how it could be leveraged for our purposes. So actually, I'm thinking now, I'm losing track. Do we do that architecture meeting? Did I set that up? Did I post a video on that? Now I'm conflating this with my actual job. This is about as close as you can get, I think, to a realistic software engineering job, because a lot of the times it's figuring out, do we need to have a meeting about this? Do we have to research this more? This is so much of the job, and if this aspect of it interests you at all, this type of planning, setup, structure, decision making, then I would, if this interests you, then I would continue looking into doing software engineering, because I think unfortunately, it's easy for me to make a video, just show you like 2 or 3 lines of code, and then have and do whatever else. But like, if I were to do that every time, I don't think I'd be able to make a lot of progress on this, nor I don't think it would be like that realistic insights into what this job really is. I mean, and what all goes into it. So if you go watch back the first episode of this to now, you have seen every single step of the process, meetings, everything. And I think that truly is the most accurate day in the life, day in the life portrayal that you can get, right? I'm not making anything up. It's right. It's here, clear as day. So I feel like I'm at work. I mean, pretty much this is what I do anyway. Just, I'm not usually the one making the stories a lot of the time. Sometimes I am, but anyway, so yeah, I'm going to continue working on prototype 2, which is going to be basically extending Docker. And then after that, I'm going to have another architecture and design meeting where I'm going to show you what came out of that. And, we have the rest of the to-do items. So we should be pretty good. Hopefully we'll learn a lot. And yeah, I think so. One thing I want to say though, as far as, how do you learn code and programming and everything like that. And I appreciate everyone's response to that poll I put up, because I was genuinely curious. I think as of this, I had like 17 responses, which is really cool. I like to see that. Obviously, I was anticipating YouTube being the most common, and for me, YouTube still might very high on my list. Especially when I started out, YouTube helped me tremendously. I think as I've progressed, I think YouTube has remained high, but honestly, books has kind of started to tick up to that same level. And one thing I think with books is helpful, like this one is dependency injection, and it's just a 500-page book talking about one topic, and it's dependency injection. So I think books sometimes help you to answer the why question, whereas I think YouTube tutorials have their place, but I don't think sometimes they allow you to, just by not videos specifically, but just the nature of videos itself is more of like an entertainment kind of learning, where you're not really, thinking and processing. But I think books force you to go a little bit slower and read about a little more in-depth things. So with dependency injection specifically in the book, it was helpful to hear somebody talk about it in terms of the actual composition of your application, specifically the composition root of a .NET application. Like, where do you start and then where do you end, and how are you building each class, and then how are the dependencies flowing down. It's been helpful to think about lifetimes of dependencies, and it was also helpful because there was a chapter on patterns for dependency injection, and then anti-patterns as well. And I think that's always been the hardest thing for me to learn, and it still is for software engineering. Is there's a million ways to do everything, but are there specific patterns that you should avoid? And I think that's I always have trouble. I don't know about you all, but I always have trouble answering that question, and I always have trouble finding like credible sources to help me answer that. And I think that's where I found the most success with books, is being able to decipher between bad, patterns that are not so good and better patterns. But I don't want to restrict freedom in terms of like exploring options and seeing maybe you can make a new pattern or something like that. I definitely think you should be open to that. And that's part of this reason for this project is I'm deliberately trying to learn new back-end patterns of doing things. I'm specifically trying to try things that I wouldn't normally try, just to see what comes out of it, and and I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can. Like, I've never used transform blocks in a production setting, and so I want to learn as much as I can to see if maybe I can incorporate that into my actual work, because it's a unique pattern, and it could be really powerful. I don't know. So that's what I'm trying to get, and I think books help with that too, because like they give you so much in-depth detail about such niche topics that it really helps you to grow. Let me get this. Another book, and also I've read, this will be my second book by Manning Publications. Super good publication for programming material. Really, really high quality and very, very just really high quality. Another one was Concurrency in .NET, which is where I started reading about the Mailbox Processor, for example. So again, a super niche topic, but it's kind of like embedded in this book, and they describe it in how they used it in an actual production setting and things like that. And then I think there was another book. Was it Concurrency Cookbook? What was the name of it? I can't remember. It was I think it was an O'Reilly book about concurrent programming in C#. It was like Concurrency C# Cookbook or something like that. That one introduced me to Transform Block, which I think might have been the other one. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But that was super good. And then, so books for me have been an increasingly helpful resource, and has given me a lot of content that I can experiment with, for lack of better words, especially the more niche design patterns. And I think that's where you get a lot of freedom and creativity in programming, right? I think what strips the fun out of programming and the creativity out of programming is when you start to just descend down into, tutorials and like those leak code style questions, which have their place and have their purpose. But if that's all you do, you're going to get burned out on it so quickly. I've noticed that for me, it's like the more I do those just repetitive, like leak code style questions, and the more I just get, the faster I just get burnt out. When it's like in reality, so much of the programming job comes down to system design. That's just, I can't understress how much of the job that is just understanding how systems interact and talk to each other, and being able to conceptualize that and to piece that together. And unfortunately, I just don't get why that's not a larger talked about question in interviews, and I don't understand why that's not a more broadly stressed thing. It's like, and I get that some places don't, like, some places the interview is just leak code, and everything like that. And I think that, like, I study leak code, so it's like I think that has its place. Now, I'm not good at leak code, but I try my best to figure out, you can only memorize how to traverse a binary search tree so many times, and it's like, all right, but it's good, it's helpful to think about. But I always get the most out of more system design and architecture type books that just help you. It helps provide a real world application of data structures and algorithms and things like that, because that's what it's all about, right? Like, okay, I have this app, I need to talk to a database. How do I do that? That's what you're getting paid to do, right? How do I build this message queue to handle 500,000 messages without crashing my system? That's where that's what we're getting paid to do. How do I scale the UI? How do I make sure that I'm not hanging on to old database connections? How do I make sure that I'm not creating a memory leak? There's so many things that are system design related that are so much of the job. And that's why I think books fill. So I go to the library and I look for as many of these books as I can, and just go from there. But I probably could do more leak code stuff. But anyway, that's enough for this. That's crazy. I don't know, that stuff really interests me. So I will report back on progress tomorrow, and I will see you on the next stand-up.